my name is Allie Schmidt. This is my dad, Dan. He owns Catron's Glass.
Thanks, Allie. Things like doors and windows go into making a house. But when it's your home, you expect more, like the great service and selection you'll get from Catron's Glass. Vinyl replacement windows from Catron's come with a lifetime warranty, including accidental glass breakage replacement. Also ask for custom shower doors and many other products and services. Call 962-1636, locally owned with local employees for nearly 30 years.
Catron's Glass, the clear choice.
I want to share something that's become a big part of the BeTempered mission, Patreon. Now, if you've never used it before, Patreon is a platform where we can build community together. It's not just about supporting the podcast. It's about having a space where we can connect on a deeper level, encourage one another, and walk this journey of faith, resilience, and perseverance side by side. Here's how it works. You can join as a free member and get access to daily posts, behind-the-scenes updates, encouragement, and some things I don't always put out on other platforms. And if you feel called to support the mission financially, there are different levels where you can do that too. That support helps us keep producing the podcast, creating gear, hosting events, and sharing stories that we believe can truly impact lives. And here's the cool part. Patreon has a free app you can download right on your phone. It works just like Facebook or Instagram, but it's built specifically for our community. You'll be able to scroll through posts, watch videos, listen to content, and interact with others who are on the same journey. At the end of the day, this isn't just about content, it's about connection. It's about building something together, not just me and Ben putting out episodes, but a family of people committed to growing stronger through real stories and real faith. So whether you just want to hop on as a free member or you feel called to support in a bigger way, Patreon is the door into that community. Because at the heart of BeTempered has always been simple, real stories, raw truth, resilient faith, so that even one person out there that hears what they need to hear, and Patreon helps make that possible.
Welcome to the BeTempered podcast, where we explore the art of finding balance in a chaotic world.
Join us as we delve into insightful conversations, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you navigate life's ups and downs with grace and resilience.
We're your host, Dan Schmidt and
Ben Spar.
Let's embark on a journey to live our best lives.
This is BeTempered.
Lord, thank you for this special day. Thank you for bringing me here. Thank you for just getting me connected with the BeTempered guys. And right now, today, Lord, whatever I say, whatever questions they ask, whatever information I give, I just want it to give you glory. And I just want anybody who's listening to understand that my purpose in life now is to point people to you. I want people to know what I know about you. I've got a lot more to learn, but I want people to know what I know, that Jesus, you really are the Son of God, and you really did come to this earth in the flesh, and you died for our sins. You sacrificed your life. You gave your life, and you went to hell for us so we wouldn't have to. You took stripes for us. You took our punishment so we wouldn't have to. And on the third day, you were raised, and your glorified body walked on this earth, and then you ascended, and you're now seated at the right hand of the throne of the Lord God Almighty. And you are coming back one day. And Father, that's my prayer, that everybody would know that and come to know you. We just ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
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 All right. Sorry, I'm not a hat guy.
Oh,
You're all right. I usually
you
don't.
have hair.
Yeah, I still got my hair. I'm holding on to it for dear life.
Yeah,
Says Ben. They are too.
I am.
No, I shaved mine. I'm good. I gave up that fight a long time ago.
I'm fighting the fight.
I think my skull's too. I'm praying I keep my hair because like my skull's just gnarly, bumpy, just ugly.
You got a full head of hair. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Well, there's signs. There's signs of dissipation, I guess you could say.
All right. You know what episode?
1010.
Nice.
1010.
I got you, Sean.
Is that a number?
All right. Here we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the BeTempered podcast, episode number
110.
Good job, Ben.
You're welcome.
Hey, today on the podcast, we welcome Caleb Hutcheson. Caleb grew up in Arkansas and eventually answered the call to serve our country as a United States Marine. During his time overseas in Afghanistan, Caleb did one of the most dangerous jobs imaginable, defusing IEDs in the middle of a war zone where every step and every decision could change lives forever. But Caleb's story didn't stop when the deployment ended. After the military, his journey led him into Bible school, deeper into his faith, and eventually into a life centered around serving others and building community. Today, Caleb lives in Lewisburg, Ohio, where he's actively involved with the Community of Faith Church and continuing to impact people through leadership, humility, and service. This conversation dives into the realities of war, fear, faith, identity, purpose, and what it looks like to be tempered through life's hardest moments. Caleb, my man, welcome to the BeTempered podcast.
All right. Thank you all for having me.
Yeah, man. I think our connection first came at the Community of Faith's men's breakfast.
Right.
There a couple, 2 or 3 months ago, I lose track of time, but
right.
We had met there. Sean and I were there with a booth, and what a powerful Saturday morning with a ton of men.
Right.
And we had a conversation, and I think you got up and gave the opening prayer, if I remember right, and kind of introduced, our group and some other groups that were there. And I was deeply impressed just with our simple conversation, just kind of getting to know each other. And so, I knew there was a story there. Yeah. There's not many people around our area with your accent, which kind of gave it away a little bit that, you weren't from around here. And then, coming into the office and learning your story, it was like, wow, like it's impressive that you're here. Right. And it's a leap of faith. So thank you for coming up here today.
Sure. I'm honored. That's the first podcast in my life, so
first of many, I'm sure.
Right, we'll see. I don't know.
No, but we appreciate that. So how we like to start every episode is talk about what life was like for you growing up as a kid.
Okay. Well, grew up in Arkansas. I grew up in a small town in southwest Arkansas called Magnolia. So it's probably, I think, like 11,000. I don't know. I think it's going down. I don't know. But 11,000. Born and raised there. Went to, high school there. Graduated with like 200. And that's where my dad's from. My mom's from a little town just south of there in Louisiana. So most of my family is all in just that county I grew up in and just that area in North Louisiana where my mom's from. So I have one brother. He's 2 years younger than me, Joel. He still lives in Magnolia. My parents still live there, and he's actually an attorney. So he got out of college and was working in like a title company, title work and stuff. And I think a man finally said, like, Joel, if you ever want to make any kind of money, you need to probably consider law school. And so he did that. He went to the University of Arkansas, and now he's actually he just started his own practice, I think, a year ago, but he's also a prosecutor. So I don't know if he loves that part, but it pays and it gives state benefits. So I think that's his pull towards that. But so growing up, I grew up in church. My parents still go to the same church that I grew up in. It was a smaller, non-denominational church. And I grew up in Baptist country. So there's a Baptist church on every street corner. I mean, Baptist, Methodist, and that's pretty much it. But so I grew up in one of the few kind of oddball churches, I'd say. But not that we're super weird or nothing, but it just wasn't. I always felt like, man, I feel like I go to the weird church. I don't know why, just because it wasn't Baptist. But
what'd your parents do for a living?
So my dad worked at the same place for like 44 years until it shut, and he'd still be there today if it didn't shut down. So he worked at a place, it's called Unit Structures, and they made out of pine lumber. They laminated lumber and made like these large beams, laminated beams. You see a lot of them in churches, like the arches you see. Yeah. That was kind of their specialty, church buildings, something that the wood was actually exposed, you know. So that, some bridges, but just, anyway, so he worked there for, I mean, I think it may have been like his second job. You know, he was like 19 or something when he started, and he worked there all growing up. And he worked most Saturdays, actually. And so I never saw him in the mornings, and then he'd be home when I got home for school, you know. And so that eventually shut down. He had a couple other jobs, I think, but it never did open back up or anything. It never did. He just kind of drifted into retirement. Yeah. So he's actually like 74, 73, 74. I guess I ought to know, but anyways.
That's okay.
But yeah, so he's kind of living the retired life now. My mom, she's probably close to 30 years being that she runs what we call the housing authority, which is federally funded housing in my town. And a lot of the units are like fixed income for elderly. So there's I know there's one apartment complex that's for the elderly. And like I said, a lot of fixed income units, but there's also the Section 8. So everybody knows my mother.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to tell you, my mother, I swear, she knows everybody from Little Rock to Baton Rouge. I'm telling you, like South Arkansas, North Louisiana, and she's related too. That's a big problem. So I refuse to go to Walmart with her when I'm home. She talks to everybody. Yeah. She's got a reputation. Everybody loves her. She's the typical mom. You know, she's a mother through and through. And so she'll talk, for sure.
Yeah.
So
talk about did you play any sports or anything growing up as a kid?
I grew up playing baseball and football. Baseball is a pretty big deal. You know, I know you had the YMCA up here, but I don't guess they're a big deal in Arkansas, or at least my part of the state. We have the Boys and Girls Club. So we called it the Boys Club, you know. So everybody played from T-ball, coach pitch, on up until you got into high school. Everybody played at the Boys Club, played baseball every year. So I did all that. I played in high school. I played football, played baseball. So sports were kind of a big deal. Always into that. So
were you a good student?
Good enough, I guess. I was probably smart enough to be all A's, but I don't know. I just didn't have the.
Yeah.
I don't know. I did good enough, you know.
Right.
I guess if I wouldn't have had parents that cared, I don't know. I didn't care too much for schoolwork. I think of all through junior high school, of all the books we were supposed to read, I think I actually, from cover to cover, finished one.
Yeah.
That was Where the Red Fern Grows. Ever seen that one?
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. Perfect book for a boy, you know. Just a boy and his two dogs coon hunting. So
what else you need?
Yeah, I ate it up, you know. I think they died though, I think. But anyway.
Sounds like it sunk in.
Yeah. Anyways. So
you go through school playing sports, all those good things. What's next coming out of school?
So actually, I have in my hometown, we have a small university, four-year university, Southern Arkansas University, home of the Mule Riders. So I guess, you know, this would have been 15, 16, 17 years ago, and everybody went to college, just about. That was the thing. You just went to college. You go get your bachelor's. That's what you're supposed to do. And I hope that's kind of changing that mindset. I think it is.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's what I did. I just stayed in my hometown. I lived at the house. I tell people I went to 13th grade. I just went to college there. I had a bunch of guys I grew up with. We were in some of the same classes in college. So, but I actually finished. I got my bachelor's. I got a bachelor's of science in industrial technology. And I don't know what that means.
At least you're
honestly,
honest.
If I've used it, I maybe I have. I guess I have.
It sounds good.
Yeah.
It really impressive. It does sound impressive. I learned zero technology, so I don't know where that. I don't know. They just throw fancy words on
It's just
stuff,
the title.
So, yeah. So, yeah, if I could go back, I wouldn't have gone to a 4-year college. And I tell a lot of young guys, like, man, look at a trade school, because you'll always have a job. If you're an electrician or plumber or carpenter or something, you're always going to have work. Me, I'm blessed. I've always found jobs, but I've always worked in factories. I always worked in plants and stuff, and so that's the environment I'm used to, and I get that is what my degree's geared towards. To kind of set you up to be in a supervisory role in any kind of manufacturing environment. So I have, I guess you could say, used it, but it's weird. Of all the places I've worked, I think just about all my immediate managers didn't have a degree, and they just started young, worked their way up, and I think not having a degree, it'll cap you at some point. Most companies want you to get one eventually, but I don't know. I never wanted to be a CEO or anything. So, but yeah. So I went to SAU, got my degree, and while I was there, I was actually working in a steel mill in town, and I worked there part-time all through college. And, I worked with guys I grew up with, some of the guys, my buddies' dads. It was one of the big
employers.
Yeah, in town, yeah. So I worked there, and it was my time in college was coming to an end, and I had one of the guys sit me down, one of the managers, and he was like, "Hey, what are you thinking about after college?" Because and they had done this with a handful of young guys who had worked out there through college. They had a crew that were college students, and we were a jack of all trades. We did pretty much everything nobody else wanted to do, mowing and weed eating, and on the weekends we'd go in the mill and shovel up all the meal scale from the week. So it was a tough job, but we had fun. I was with other 19, 20-year-olds, and we were, by the grace of God, we made it there at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning to come into work. Man, you talk about sweating. Had a bunch of chemicals flowing out of our pores, Anyways, we made it through, but yeah, I was coming to the end of my time in college, and I was about to graduate, and so They kind of asked me, what did I think about staying on and learning the mill, learning different positions, and eventually working my way into possibly a supervisory role, And I was like, man, and I sat there and kind of thought about my dad and my mom, how they were so loyal to their jobs and everything, and I don't know, something just kind of bugged me. And it's like, man, if I don't leave town, I'm going to work here at this mill for, I don't know how long, probably the rest of my life. I know I will. That's what I've seen growing up. I know that's what you're supposed to do. And at the same time, I was working with a guy who had got out of high school, went into the Army. He was actually a Ranger, and he had done his time and got out and was now going back to college. And so he was working with us. And so he would tell us, he got to telling us all these stories about going to Iraq and stuff and all this crazy stuff. And, it kind of, man, the more I would listen to him, I was getting kind of like, man, this military thing's kind of sounding exciting, And right out of high school, I was like, man, I didn't want to have nothing to do with it. It never crossed my mind to go. But the more I was listening to him and the more I started thinking like, man, do I want to live here for the rest of my life, or do I at least want to, see what else is in the world, I just started. I look back now and I say it really was a God-given desire. It really was, because it was just like this scratch I had to, or an itch I had to scratch. And so I was like, man, I've got to at least, I got to check this out. And the longer I would ponder on it, it was like, I know if I don't do this, when I get to be an old man, I'm going to really regret it. I just started, it really started becoming a conviction to me. So one day I didn't tell a soul. The closest recruiting station I knew of was in Texarkana. That was an hour away. That was our main city we went to go watch which ain't much of a city, but we go to the movies or go.
Isn't there a song about Texarkana, or what is that?
Yeah, the Smoking the Bandit.
Oh, that's what it is.
The beer movie in Texarkana. Yeah, Smoking the Bandit. Yeah. So yeah,
and there was beer in Texarkana.
There's beer there. Yeah, there
Not
is.
dry.
Yeah. So this is border town, Arkansas and Texas border town. So that was, biggest, I guess you could say, city closest to us. So anyways, it was an hour away, and I drove over there one Saturday or something. And I remember they got a little mall. Most people wouldn't call it a mall, but it's mall to us. They had, I always remember, you walk right in the door and there's these 4 offices, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps. And I'd pondered around. I did a little bit of looking on the internet, and I kind of came to the conclusion, like, I think the Army is probably my best option. They've got a lot of different jobs you could get into. It sounds, like a safe bet, something I might want to join. And so I drive all the way over there, and the Army recruiter, he's not there. The office is closed. I mean, it's like midday on a Saturday, like prime time, So it was closed, and I'm like, what the heck? I'm not driving home. I'm not turning around right now. And so I stood back and I looked at the others, and I was like, man, Air Force, like, man, they're weak. like I
Just
knew.
being honest.
Yeah. And I looked at the Navy, and I was like, man, I don't know that I want to be stuck on a boat. I don't know if I can handle that. And I looked at the Marine Corps, and I was like, man, these guys are nuts. And I was like, well, let me walk in. And I sat down with this recruiter, and I swear he asked me just a couple questions, and he asked me, I can't remember what the question was. And he was like, man, do you like a good challenge or something along those lines? And I just gave him a real vague response. And I was like, oh yeah, well, I'm 22 years old at this time. I'm just him-hawing. I don't know how to answer him. And he's like, well, look, man, I'll go ahead and tell you, dude, if you don't know if you don't like to be challenged, if you're not, if you don't think it's for you, man, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, it's not for you, man. And he started like putting his pen up and stuff. And I'm like, whoa. And I swear that was the smartest move. That guy knew exactly what he was doing. Because I was like, no, man, I'm tough, man. I don't know what I said, but I all of a sudden put the tough guy on. And I mean, he had me sold from then on. And anyways, so I graduated college in 2011. I had to take like a summer class to graduate. So I graduated in the summer. And so I told the guys at the steel mill, I was like, look, yeah, I'm not going to stay on. I'm enlisting in the Marine Corps. And so in October of 2011, I went to boot camp. And so
Let me stop you before you get into boot camp. What did your family think about that?
Well,
because we would have been 2011, so we were 10 years into
Right.
Afghanistan and all that, right?
Right. Yeah. And so it wasn't, it definitely wasn't over. There was still stuff going on. I would say the worst part of Afghanistan, at least, was definitely had kind of just finished, I would say. But I knew it was a possibility I'd be deployed. I knew that. It didn't really, I guess, necessarily bother me. And my mother, her grandfather, one of her grandfathers was in World War II. One of her uncles was a Marine in the Korean War. On her mom's side, all the men were military. My dad went in the military, but he had a couple brothers in. And so, I don't know, I'm sure my mom was extremely distraught internally, but, they weren't opposed to it at all.
They were supportive.
Right. So, yeah, they weren't opposed to it at all.
So you report to boot camp.
Right. So that was in October of 2011. And I went so how the Marine Corps is, they have two places you go to boot camp at, and Parris Island, South Carolina, or San Diego. And so from what I understand, the Mississippi River is the dividing line. So I lived on the west side, so I went to San Diego. So I went to boot camp in the winter, but I'm in San Diego, so it was like sunny and 75 every day, So it was, the weather was great, but I'll tell you, like boot camp, I really, to get ready, I was super nervous about the physical aspect, super nervous. And so I was hitting the gym. I was running that summer. I'd get out there when it was, it'd get pretty hot in South Arkansas, and humid, hot and humid. It's going to hit 100, 10, might hit 105 one day, And I'd get out there and run in the heat of the day. Just try, I'm trying to get as tough as nails because I do not want to, get out there and look like an idiot. And so I'm probably in the best shape of my life before I go to boot camp, even to this day, probably, because I was so nervous about not being in shape. And I get out there, and I remember getting off the plane in San Diego. I get off the plane. It's like, I don't know, 7, 8 at night. It's dark. And I'm trying to figure out, I knew from my orders, they're telling us like, there's going to be a bus that picks y'all up at the airport and go towards, find the USO. I don't know if you've ever seen those in the airports.
Yeah.
Those are veterans. Hey, go check out the USO in the airports because they're great. They're awesome. There's always some nice old lady in there who's going to like make you a sandwich. They're awesome anyway. So actually I forget about the USOs. I hadn't been in one in years, but anyway, so I remember getting probably 100 yards away from the USO, and I just started hearing, rah, rah, rah. I'm like, what the heck is that? And I start getting closer, and I see all these young dudes who are like we were supposed to have like a collared shirt on, I think, to go. And I just see, these 18-year-old dudes all of a sudden just looking around, looking just scared and running towards this
noise.
This noise, yeah. And so I'm like, dang, I think that's where I'm supposed to be. so I'm just like, I'm like hurrying up too, and man, I thought I'd have a little time to chill and, catch my thoughts in the airport. No, man, there's two or three drill instructors out there. We're at the airport, in front of God and everybody. I mean, just they're yelling. They're holding nothing back. They're asking. They're looking at your papers, your orders and stuff, and they're just they put you in a line, and we stand there for God knows how long before everybody gets there. They're making sure everybody who is supposed to be there, they're checking off on a list, and they finally cram us on some old school bus painted, I can't remember, red and yellow. That's the Marine Corps colors. And so we get on the school bus, and they make us ride from the airport to boot camp, the Marine Corps recruit depot is what they call it. And we have to hold our heads down. We can't look. We cannot look outside in the windows. We can't look anywhere. We can't. It's like they kidnapped us or something. That's the way I felt.
The mind games had started.
Yeah. Oh, and that was the thing. And once you get there, I don't think for the first 48 hours you even sleep. You get a haircut, which is horrible. Tough as the most painful haircut I've ever had. They didn't care what's on your head, you know. And I mean, they're just handing you stuff. You're walking around with your uniforms, and you're just, I mean, the obscenities are flying. You know, just like I've never seen people so mad in my life. Just, it really is the Full Metal Jacket. I mean, really, it's I would say even more intense than that.
Really,
I would say, yeah. It like those Marine Corps drill instructors. If anybody on earth is good at their job, it's them. They are extreme to the max, and they don't slack up on you you're in boot camp for 13 weeks. They do not slack up at all. It never quits until the day you leave. And
how'd you feel in that moment once you got in there and it was just total chaos? Were you questioning, why am I here?
Well, what's funny is I had one of my recruiters. He was like, "Look, man, which they're real cool with you. The recruiters are real slick.
They want you to join.
Oh
yeah,
yeah, they're real cool." And I remember one of them telling me, he was like, "Look, man, when you get there, just remember, always remember, it's a game. They're just doing their job, but it's a game. Look, you're not going to die. Just play the game." And so literally for the first 2 weeks, as crazy as it was, for the first 2 weeks, I was like, it's just a game. About week 3, I remember I was like, this is not a game. This was a bad decision. I don't know what I'm doing. This was not a good idea. And what's funny is you'll get around a couple guys. I remember one guy in particular. I remember he was a little bit older. He was probably like 25, 26, and he was already married. And I'd get around him, and the few times you were able to actually, chop it up with somebody and talk, he'd always talk about his wife and back home. He can't wait to go back home because I think he was going to be a reservist. So he'd get to go back home and do his, weekend once a month. But he kept talking about home, and like after a couple weeks, I was like, man, I gotta stay away from this guy because he's getting me depressed because I want to go home. I know it's a bad idea, man, but we're stuck. We can't go right now. And but as far as the physical aspect of it, yes, it was the most physically demanding thing I'd ever done up until that point. But that's not what got me. It was the mental aspect of the whole thing. Man, it was just so intense, and they never let up, and it was so regimented. And actually, what we did more than anything was practice drill. So marching and what we call rifle manual, and we would march as a platoon and learn how to march and learn how to, move our rifle and stand and how to get our rifle inspected. And we did that constantly. If we were going to the chow hall to get a meal, we did drill on the way there. On the way back, we did it. It was constant. It was just, at the core of it, they're teaching discipline.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. It's discipline and how to work as a team. And that is what the core of it is. But, when you're like 22 and you're doing stupid stuff all day, they're yelling. You're going nuts. I know the thing that people say the Marines are brainwashed, but maybe we are. I don't know. I don't know, because it was just so intense. So the mental aspect of boot camp was far more challenging than the physical, I would say.
Which is opposite of, well, not opposite, but I was about to ask you how long it took you to get used to it. So to hear that like week 3 is when it got like really hard for you to, like, that's almost like, I'd figure after like 2 weeks you might get, kind of used to it. Okay, this is what's going to happen. But they kept you on your toes, and it got harder and harder and harder.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. Like we had 3 drill instructors in my platoon, and my platoon was like 90. We had a couple drop out for whatever medical reasons or whatever. So I can't remember. It was like 92 or somewhere in that. So we had 3 drill instructors over us. And so one, he's kind of like the dad of the group. Now he was, don't get me wrong, not a dad, but he was the least intense of all. He was in charge. So the other 2 guys, they were out to, we call them kill hats. So one of them's always, he's just, his purpose in life is to just screw with you. And that's what they did. Before you went to bed, as soon as you woke up, sometimes, you might have to take your whole bed, your sheets, chunk them across the room, take your socks, underwear, chunk them across the room. Everybody's got stuff laid everywhere. And then you have to go pick it up, and he's counting down the whole time you're doing it. It's just so stupid, and it would just drive you so nuts.
Was there ever a time throughout that where your mental shifted and you were like, okay, I got this. It's back to a game?
Well, I think, and this is what a lot of Marines will tell you, and you live life meal to meal. So food became the only thing you like valued in life, and that was the only thing you got to look forward to. So you learn to live meal to meal. So, and then you eventually got to a countdown how many days you had left. And so that was just your only anchor, was just like, all right, I got 34 days left. And all right, lunch is in, an hour and a half. You were on such a strict schedule. Every day was almost the same as far as the schedule went. Like you were on such a, it was so regimented. Down to the minute, their whole day. And so, and you were moving like that. So a day went by pretty fast because you were just boom, 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 boom. And I guess probably halfway through, I eventually was like, all right, I'm not going to die. I'm going to make it through it. I hate it, but all right, let's go. We got lunch to look forward to. All right, we got supper to look forward to. And so, and I was surprised actually. You ate 3 meals. They made you eat. You ate 3 square meals a day, and you don't think that actually. You always hear like, oh, you're not going to eat, and you're not going to drink water, you're going to be almost dead. No, they actually. I drank more water in boot camp than I ever have. Probably, I drank more water in 3 months than I have in the last 15 years probably. They made you pound water.
Well, I think the important thing, what you just said, and I think our military does a good job with that, is you have to get to a point, even in your daily life, where, everybody sets goals, everybody wants to achieve those goals, but when you do hard things, you got to break it down to sometimes hour by hour.
Right.
And looking forward to, okay, I got lunch coming.
Right.
I'm going to get to lunch, and then I'm going to do my afternoon, and then I'm going to get to dinner.
Right.
I'm going to get a break. And then we're going to go into the night, and it's going to suck. And I'm going to go through hell. I'm going to sleep, and then I'm going to have breakfast, and I'm going to get a little reprieve. I think it's important for people to understand, and again, I think the military does a good job of forcing you to break it down into that simple. Even though you're doing I got 30 days left or whatever it is, really – the only way you can get through it is to think about, I just got to make it to lunch.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's an important piece that a lot of people miss, whether they're starting a diet or a routine or whatever it is. They think about the big picture down the road. They just got to focus on what's next.
Yeah.
What's next. So that's a good point.
Yeah. I didn't mean to make that point, but
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
The Marines made it for you.
Yeah.
So you eventually make it through boot camp.
Right. Yep. So, like I said, that was 13 weeks. And so my MOS, military occupational specialty, or my job in the Marine Corps, was a 1371 combat engineer. And so I took that job. The recruiter talked me into that, because engineers in the Marine Corps, I thought, were kind of like, if you ever heard of the Navy Seabees, like they're the kind of jack of all trades. They're the guys who are, you know, out there doing construction. They're I thought I was
building bridges.
Bridges. Yeah, exactly. So I was like, man, you know, this is a smart move. You know, every 18-year-old's a gung-ho. Give me a rifle. I want to be a grunt, you know. And so I was just a little bit older. I was, like I said, I was 22 when I went in. And that did make a huge difference when I was in boot camp, actually, because most of them kids were right out of high school, 18. And I could tell a huge difference in the maturity level, just 4 years. But so I was like, all right, let me come to my senses. Let me try to get a job that I can maybe take into the real world when I get out. And so I picked engineer. And so I was like, man, I'll probably be doing construction or something, building runways. You know, that was kind of their deal. But no, I didn't build anything hardly, I think. So when you get out of boot camp, you go to what they called MCT. I went back out to San Diego, actually Camp Pendleton, California, for a month. That was Marine combat training. So it was just like a month long. You're hiking. It was pretty. It was actually more physically intense than boot camp because of the hikes. Because we were out Camp Pendleton. It's kind of almost mountains, and so I mean we were hiking. It was pretty tough. You're carrying like 90 pounds on your back, rifle, you know. So it was pretty tough there. But so I go do that, and then my school, my MOS school, was in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, and so flew over there. I spent like, I don't know, I can't remember, a couple months doing school, and we learned all kinds of stuff. But how it works in the Marine Corps, what you will, as far as a engineer goes, what you'll be doing specifically just depends on what unit you go to. So we had engineer battalions or engineer companies or whatever, but each company had its own purpose. So I got stationed there at Camp Lejeune, and I got orders to 2nd Combat Engineer Battalion. And so we called it CEB, Combat Engineer Battalion. CEB was attached to, or mine was to the 2nd Marine Division. So when we talk about a Marine Division, we're talking about the infantry. And so we were attached to our purpose in life. My battalion's purpose in life was to support the infantry. And so what I did specifically in my company, I was in Mobility Assault Company. We did route clearance. So what that is a glorified term for, we looked for the IEDs. So we weren't on foot, we were mounted. So what I fell into was I drove this vehicle. Just kind of, my platoon sergeant told me, you're driving this. He just told me one day. And so that's just what I did for the rest of my Marine Corps career, you know, for 4 years. And I drove this vehicle called the Buffalo. So what the Buffalo does is it has this, it's a beast of a vehicle. And what it has, it's got this hydraulic arm on it that'll swing out. And if we think we found something, it's got like it had like a scoop on it, almost like a big fork on it. Then it had a big long knife on the end. It had a rotating head, had a high pressure air hose on it. We had a camera on it. And so if we thought we found something, I'd be the guy to, you know, my vehicle would dig around, try to dig it up. And so that's what I fell into. That became my baby. You know, I learned, tried to learn everything about that. I really just drove it, which I'll get into this later in my first deployment. And then I kind of handled everything on my second deployment. But, yeah, so that was my, that's what I got into, route clearance. I didn't know construction. I went from what I thought was a pretty safe bet to probably one of the more dangerous things you could do.
Where was your faith at this time?
Well, okay, so going back to like growing up, I grew up in church. I grew up, my dad was Christian home, my mom Christian home. Both everybody in my family on both sides. I really don't know anybody who wasn't a Christian. I really don't. And everybody went to church. It was that was part of life. That was a non-negotiable. And so growing up, I remember probably, and I hate I don't remember the age. Everybody seems like they can remember their age. I don't know, but I remember the place. I can take you to the building. I can take you to probably the same pew. I don't even think it's a church anymore where I was at, but I can tell you when I got saved. I know I remember the change, and so probably 11 or 12, I got saved, and I felt like as a boy, I felt I knew I was different. I knew God, and I knew what it meant to be saved, and I understand. I grew up in Sunday school, and I grew up hearing these things. They were in the home too. It wasn't just church, and so I get to high school, and probably about my senior year, I start drinking a little bit. And so I that kind of get into college, and that kind of grew. So by the time college comes around, I'm partying all the time. I drink quite a bit, And if you get in the Marine Corps, if you don't know how to drink, you'll learn, and you will perfect the art of of drinking in the Marine Corps, because that is one thing they'll teach you to do. So, I wasn't. It's kind of weird. I look back, and sometimes a couple years ago, I would have said, I think I was just completely lost. And I look back now, I kind of think I changed my beliefs on where I was at. I think you can backslide and fall away from God, but I think it's almost next to impossible to you'd have to make a conscious decision and actually still believe in God and say within your heart, no, I don't want nothing to do with you anymore. I think that's the only way you could lose your salvation. Now, I know a lot of people, I don't want to argue. I don't have enough theological, I hadn't studied it out enough to just stand so firm on that I'd get in an argument. But looking at my life, some of the things that happened to me while I was on deployment, and, after getting out of the Marine Corps, I would say, I was still his. I was just that prodigal son, And so as far as when I was in the Marine Corps, where my faith was, it was as weak as it's ever been. So I definitely, and while I was in 4 years of the Marine Corps, the only times I probably went to church, probably 10 times, maybe, I hope. And so I wasn't in prayer. I kept my Bible around, I felt like it was, I guess it was,
like shield.
It was probably more of a superstition than it was actual faith, it wasn't like I was reading it. But there were a few times I'd get in pretty intense situations, and I'd get into fear, and I would definitely, I'd start praying then, because that's what I knew to do. And so I'll probably get into it a little further here in a little bit, but there's a couple times I did, I think God definitely showed up for me, and I definitely cried out to him. So, but in general, I was just backslid.
You talk about that though with boot camp. You talk about how it's so strict and everything's always planned out, and it's living to the next meal and stuff. There's probably no time really to, be in the Word and stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
like during boot camp part.
Yeah, not actually being in the Word. I don't ever remember. I always did carry this little. They gave you these little, the little Gideon Bibles.
Yeah,
I always had one of them. I carried because they allowed you to carry. There was only like a couple things they allowed you to actually carry in your pockets, and that was one of them. And so, and actually, they suggested that you have one once we got on the rifle range. It's kind of weird because we had these front pockets on our uniforms, and they suggested to have a little Bible right there. They, to help you,
like a pad almost.
Well, actually, to set the butt of your rifle on, because it was just a good support. So that's what you see a lot of guys doing. They put put one of them little Bibles in their front pocket because it kind of would just set the bottom part of the butt of your rifle right on it, and it would just kind of help you steady it. It's just so. Anyway. So
well, I think the point,
right reason,
and the reason I ask is obviously because we talked, and I know your story, and I think it's important for people to hear that no matter what happens in your life, and you become saved at a young age, and that seed was planted early on from your family, and we fall away sometimes,
right?
But He's always beside us,
right? And
I think that comes to fruition here later for you. So you've got your assignments. You're going to be diffusing IEDs. You're kind of perfecting the what's it called? What's the machine that you're driving?
The Buffalo.
The Buffalo. You're figuring that machine out, and then the call comes for your first deployment.
Right.
Talk about that.
So yeah, when I get to my unit, actually like first day checking in. Looking back, I can kind of see God's favor on my life. It's just weird. Some little things will happen. And I'm checking in with our first sergeant of our company. And I'm in what we call our pickle suit. We have a green, it'd be more like our business suit. It's not the blues, not the really fancy, but our green suit that we wear. You check into your unit anytime. That's what you check in with. And you're trying to look as perfect as you can because you're going to get nitpicked and it's going to be a terrible day checking into your unit. And so anyways, that's what I did. And I remember checking in with First Sergeant Jones, Lee C. Jones. He was a black man, bald-headed, previously a drill instructor. Man, this guy was just chiseled, just like a, just
piece of granite,
man. And he was he just still had that drill instructor demeanor. His uniform was impeccable and intimidating. And we're checking in, and it's like four of us, and he's going down, asking each one of us a question or something. And he gets to me, and he's asking everybody where we're from. And about the time he gets to the second dude, just like out of the corner of my eye, I see this, those pennants, like the baseball teams.
Yeah.
I see this pennant, and it's Arkansas Razorbacks. And I'm like, oh my God.
There's
something. So yeah, Pig Suey. Thank God, man. And so he gets to me, I'm like the last guy, and he's like, so where you from, Hutcheson? I said, I'm from Arkansas, First Sergeant. He said, well, all right. I'm from Arkansas too. All right. And he kind of cooled down, And I was like, man, this is like, could be my one saving grace. Maybe my life won't completely suck. But he told us right off the bat, right after that, he just looked at us and he's like, we're going to Afghanistan. He said, so you better get ready. Go ahead and tell your families, you go ahead and get your mind right, because here in a couple months, we're going to California to do our workup training. And I think I got to my unit in probably about this time, like May. And I was going to be, I went to Afghanistan in September. Hadn't even been in the Marine Corps a whole year. And so he tells us that, and I'd kind of heard, you hear rumors of units when you're in the Marine Corps. You kind of, it's just like any other organization. Rumors are flying, birdies are flying, and so I'd heard that at least some of my battalion was going, And so I knew there was a chance, and I was still like, man, I don't know. We'll see. So he told us, and so I was halfway prepared to hear it. And so I was like, man, okay. Well, this is what I signed up for because, and I was, part of me is glad because at that time, at least, when you get in the Marine Corps, when you finally get to your unit, if you hadn't deployed, you ain't nobody. You're a boot, and you'll be a boot until that's what we call, that's just, the lowest guy, that's what we call people a boot. So when you're older, if you've been in the Marine Corps 10 years and you're about to get in an argument, somebody calls you a boot, that's fighting words. Like it's serious. And so I'm a boot. And I was kind of halfway happy because I was like, all right, well, I get to deploy, and so I won't be a boot forever, And so later on, I found out, in my specific unit, like, it's one thing to not have been deployed, but if you're really cool in my unit, you've got blown up. So that was the tier 3, like boot, you've been deployed, and then
You've been blown up.
You've been blown up. So it's like, man, do I want to join that club or not? I don't know. Because, you had these guys who've been on a couple deployments and they're just treating you like dog crap. But, they're also talking you hear them telling their war stories and you're just like, man, will I ever do that? Do I want to do that? I don't know. The only reason I'd want to do that just so I could come back and hold my head high around the place, And so anyway, so I was kind of excited, and just for the fact of, okay, I'll get to do this. I'll get to do what I signed up to do. But then it's like, all right, I got to tell my mom. And so I don't know how long I waited. I probably waited a couple weeks because I was just scared to call home, So I remember calling one night, and I just was talking to my mom. I was like, well, I got to tell you something, And I said, I'm going to Afghanistan. And I just remember the phone being silent for like, I don't know how long, So I can see my mom's face right now, though. Anytime she's about to cry, she's just like, she won't make a noise, but she'll just be like, for like, I don't know, 30 seconds before any noise comes out.
Yeah.
So I just knew that's what she was doing. And so, anyways, I guess she took it well enough, and so I think, we went out to California, 29 Palms, California. It's the desert out there, but that's kind of for probably the Iraq, Afghanistan, that phase in the last 20 years or so. That's where every unit would go out and do their workup, just because it's similar terrain. It's hot, desert, a lot of ranges out there, a lot of open desert. And so we went out there for like a month, and like I said, by September, I was in country. I was in Afghanistan. So I was in Helmand Province, which is in the southern part of Afghanistan. It borders, I guess we bordered Pakistan on the south, not real far from Iran. So I was, Camp Leatherneck was one of the big bases. So I don't think a lot of people know how it was kind of set up over there. There was I never went to Iraq, but I knew it was kind of, from hearing from other guys, it's kind of set up the same. But in Afghanistan, there was like 3 or 4 major bases. I know you probably heard of Bagram. That was the big
Air Force.
Yeah, that was the big, Biden and his deal,
Pulling everybody.
Yeah, that was a kind of a bad deal. That was at Bagram. That was kind of up north. That was kind of close to, oh golly, what's the capital? I already forgot. I know it. Oh gosh,
Ben is our.
I should know this.
We're in trouble.
Anyways,
it doesn't matter.
It was up north.
What was the temperature like there? Not like how did it feel, but what was the temperature, the setting of the war at that time?
Well, it took a while to get a feel, honestly. my first deployment, it wasn't too crazy. And I'll say this too. It made a difference in the winter and in the summer. It really did. My first deployment, I went from like September. We did 7-month deployments. I went from September to like, I guess it would have been May. And it wasn't too crazy, wasn't too wild. But so kind of how it would work is you might go 2 weeks and just absolutely nothing would happen. They're just driving around. And so it was real easy to get complacent. And then all of a sudden, boom, something would go off, Normally, in our case, it was you'd find or hit an IED. And so it wasn't too wild. We did go on a couple really big missions they would put together. They were looking for maybe like a high-profile guy, or they knew there was this, a lot of times they would find where they're actually making IEDs, or actually, they'd use fertilizer. That was their main. It's ammonium nitrate fertilizer. That's what they would make 9 times out of 10. That's what they make their actual charge out of. And so they'd find a little kitchen, what we call it or whatever. And normally we would, they'd put together a big mission, and we'd drive the grunts up to it, and they'd make their hit or whatever, and we'd kind of guide them on the way out, or pull security while they're going in there, kicking indoors or whatever. And so only problem was we were the guys who were in huge vehicles and stuck out like a sore thumb, couldn't hide from anybody. So we're the ones they were trying to mortar and stuff,
Was there ever any close calls on that first deployment?
Yeah, so I guess I can get into this. Actually, right out the gate, my first time, what we say, outside the wire. So when you get off of a base, you're outside the wires. That's our terminology. So my first time outside the wire, we had, this is what's funny, about a month before I deployed, I was home on, they give you a big chunk of leave to go home before you deploy. And so I was home for a couple weeks, and I'm watching the news, and I knew where I was going. I knew at least I was going to Camp Leatherneck. I'm watching the news, and these guys had somehow got a hold of either British or Marine Corps uniforms, these Taliban, and they got onto the runway there. They climbed over a fence, got on the runway, and started shooting the place up, and they started RPGing. Actually, it was financially, it was one of the biggest losses, in one single go, biggest financial losses in the whole, Afghan or Iraqi campaigns, because they I don't know, man, they destroyed like 3 Harrier jets, a couple of helicopters. They can't, they all eventually got shot, took out. But while they were still gunning, they did a lot of financial damage. And so I'm watching that on the news, and I'm like, dang, that's where I'm going. So when I get there like a month and a half later or something, the first thing on our plate was they put together this huge mission to go track wherever these guys who did this and where they planned it, and wherever their home base was, they had got all the intel. They knew where they were at, and they were going to go make this huge raid. And so we went. That was my first thing, and I remember driving for we literally drove, I think it was 23 hours straight to go get to this place. And we drove, the one thing we didn't want to do was drive at night, because we had technology to look for IEDs, but our eyes were the best piece of equipment we had.
What are you looking for, when you look for those?
So how it was set up, I was in this Buffalo, and so I had this arm that could dig and stuff. But actually at the very front, we had 2 vehicles we called Huskies, and they were single man vehicles, and they were literally made to be blown up. And they were like a 3-part. They were like a cab and 2, we called them mods, but they were like a front axle, a back axle, and they were made to, if it got blown up, it was made to like blow into 3 pieces and to take the brunt of the force off the cab. And the bottom of the cab was just like a V, you know. And so, I mean, they could take a hit really, really well. So you were kind of pretty safe in them. But on the front, they had what we call GPR, ground penetrating radar. And it was these big panels. And so the driver would have this screen, and it would look like a, what's the thing where you look at, I can't ever remember this. You're looking at a baby. Ultrasound. That's what it looked like. So it looked like an ultrasound screen. And so they could see like, you know, more or less shapes. So they could see like if there's a big rock in the road or something, they could see this shape. So if you saw something that was like, had clean edges, perfectly square or something, like, okay, you know, stop.
Yeah.
And so they'd stop, you know, chunk a piece of a water bottle or something out there, say, you know, dig right here, you know, and they would pull off to the side, back up, pull off the side, let us pull up, and we'd start digging. And so that was kind of that was our routine. We always carried EOD with us, the explosive ordnance disposal. So I wasn't actually the guy cutting the wires and stuff. We did a little training on that, but we had EOD with us. And so if we actually did pull something out of the ground, they would come up and they would, and actually it was kind of weird. I didn't know this till I got over there. A lot of their work is actually investigative. They would take samples of the actual explosive. They would all the components they could get that, you know, wouldn't blow up, they would take, and they would go back, get fingerprints, and, you know, they would get all the info they could, and they would track, you know, they'd figure out who's making these things. They could actually, it's just like a murder case almost. And so we always had those guys with us, and where I got off track, where were we going with this?
He was asking how you would identify.
Oh yeah, so yeah.
Because like how big are they?
Oh well,
or does it all depend?
They get bigger. I remember that. So a typical one, over in the Middle East, they sell these these yellow jugs of cooking oil. I don't know, it's canola oil or whatever it is, but there's these yellow jugs, and they're the size of maybe like a, you know, there's like two gallon gas tanks,
yeah.
Maybe not 5 gallon, but they're about that size. And it was just a plastic jug, kind of squarish. And that was their number one container. And so they packed that thing full of explosive. And typically we wouldn't find that. We would find what we call a pressure plate. So they'd take 2 pieces, maybe like one before or something, and they'd kind of put a little shim on the ends where there's a space, and they'd put 2 wires kind of, you know, opposite direction each other. Anyways, so, and they would have a wire coming out to it. They'd have it hooked up to a battery, normally a couple of AA's or something, just enough to give a little charge to normally a homemade blasting cap or something that was sitting in the actual charge. And anyway, so that pressure plate was the number one thing we'd see. We'd see like, most of the time they'd see like a, you know, piece of wood or something in the ground. And sometimes actually those Huskies that drove up front, they always had these rakes on the back. So it was like they were, you know, they wasn't discs. It was like, it almost was like disking a field out here or something, but they had just little
prongs,
steel prong. Yeah. And couple times they would just accidentally just rake up one of these pressure plates. It's like, whoa. you know, if you got to see that, everybody's like, everybody stop what you're doing. And so and then you start digging. So that's what we got. We got to, you had to figure out what you were looking for. You had to figure out what their norm was. And most of the time it was the pressure plate. And so I remember one time, the first one I ever found is actually on that first mission I went out on. I mean, it was actually like a radio controlled, had a, radio controlled device on it. Actually, I think it was set up for like somebody with a garage door opener. They use that a lot. They had some kind of little transmitter, the same thing you'd use to open your garage door, I guess the remote and the transmitter. And so they would wait. Somebody's actually over there physically waiting on you to drive by. And I remember at first mission, I was driving and I was the only thing the only way I found this because I was just so scared, so nervous. I just happened to see this little wire. I mean, it couldn't have been an inch sticking out of the sand. And I just had 4 vehicles I had already drove in front of me. And I see this little wire sticking up. And I'm like, I'm like, man, there's a wire. There's a wire. And so it's little stuff like that. But as time went on, you would get we stayed in the same area, and we would normally go down the same routes. And you would you'd go up and down them so often, you would notice what was there the last time and what wasn't. And so if you saw something funny that wasn't there, now you're on high alert. And you'd always see these rock stacks. A lot of times the Taliban, they're looking for us. They're the IEDs are targeted toward us. And so the locals, whether they were really sympathetic to the Taliban or not, I just assumed everybody was. I think most of them were actually just kind of neutral. They want to just be left alone. They're like normal people. But nevertheless, the Taliban they would have signs, and these people knew what to look for when the Taliban had planted one. So the Taliban might plant one here in the road, and then, 20 feet off the side, they'd have a little rock stack or something, or there'd be some kind of
would that be a sign for the people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not for us.
Right.
But we would figure it out eventually, So it would, at least we began to know what to look for. And so when we'd see something like that, especially something new, if we didn't see it, there was a lot of rock stacks, but after going up on route 4, 5, 6 times, you and you're on high alert the whole time, you recognize them. You know where they're at. So if there's a new one, you're like, oh, God. So you start looking. So that was kind of, I'd like to say the technology we had was really helping us, but man, I didn't trust anything but my eyes, honestly, and my kind of intuition, So intuition kind of played a big part. So as far as close calls, I remember that first deployment I got there in September. By February, we had this big mission, and the special operations guys, we called MARSOC at the time. I think they took the name Raiders, but the Marine Corps special operations teams, they had been in this compound, and they were trying to kind of win over this little neighborhood or something. Well, they had pretty much got to where they couldn't leave their compound in this certain area, that we had never been to, never drove to. And they had pretty much got pinned down. They just couldn't leave. And they were pretty much every evening they were getting mortared or getting shot at. And so they just lived in their little, their little house. I mean, it had been, bunkered in. It was, wasn't like they were in super high threat. They had cover. They had a place to live, but they'd been there for a couple months and just couldn't, without being able to, I think at night a helicopter would come in, give them, resupply them or something. But they couldn't physically couldn't leave. So the problem was it was down by a river and there was this humongous cliff right above it. And then the river. And then there's where the compound is. And it's just it wasn't no easy way to get there, to drive in or anything. So they put together this huge mission. And first thing we did, we were taking, tanks. You know, we had M1A1 Abrams at the time. The Marine Corps just got rid of those, I hate that, but because those tanks, those Abrams, that's the king of the jungle. I'm telling you, that gun they have, that's a bad machine right there. And those things will move. I don't know how fast they'll go, but they'll probably do 50. I don't know, 50 or 60. They can move. But anyways, so we had tanks. We had everybody come out because the point was we were going to have this all-out shootout and give these guys cover, and so we could drive down there, get all their junk, and drive them out, and say good riddance with the place. And so I remember we were driving everybody up to this cliff, and we were having my platoon is kind of leading the way. And I think we found one, and then somebody behind me actually took a hit with IED. And then we finally get settled in, get these tanks and everybody up on the edge of this cliff, get the grunts set in. And so I remember we waited there one night, then we drove back the next morning. No. We drove back. Anyways, we were driving back the next night, I think. So anyways, what'll happen a lot of times, if you go down a route to kind of a dangerous spot, like a random, not a road, but you make your own route, what'll happen a lot of times, we say backlay us. So they typically know we're going to take our same route back. And so they'll just plant an IED right in our own tracks. And specifically they'll put you in they'll put them in a pinch point where they know, like there was what we called a wadi, which is a dry creek bed. There was one spot to go through this thing, just one. So anyways, we're driving back one night, and they had backlayed us. We had just found IED, we dug it up, got rid of it. And so we get up to this, happened to be what I'm talking about, this dry creek bed. There's one spot to cross it. And my Huskies go through, it's nighttime, and I'm already hating it. So back to the intuition thing. Man, for some reason, I was like, something's not right. Man, something. Like I'm on edge. I am on edge. And I knew something wasn't jiving. And so the first 2-3 vehicles go through this thing. It's just a kind of real steep downgrade and right back up. But it's the only spot you could go. And so a couple vehicles go through, and just the way this little spot was, I kind of had to get out of their tracks. And because of my vehicle is real top heavy and I need to be on a real flat surface, I can't take a steep grade on one or either side. And so I had to go a little bit to the left. And what we did, we had a bulldozer. We had bulldozers with us. And we had a bulldozer just go down this hill, and we just to plow up the surface level of the dirt, just, because we would do that sometimes. We just send a bulldozer in front of us on the rare occasion we had one. And they're pretty safe. They would they're just plowing. They're digging up. I'd see them. They'd dig up, and the IED would just come off just plowed out to the side. And so we had one. We called him to come up, and he drove. He's driving down this hill. I remember looking at my window, and he's driving right beside me, and he's going down this hill. And I'm looking at his blade, and because he's going downhill, his blade wasn't breaking the surface of the ground because it's kind of such a steep downgrade. And I'm like, dang, whatever. I guess I'll be okay, but I'm still on edge, and that bulldozer goes in front of me and comes out the other side. And so I just kind of pull in behind him, and I'm just driving. I'm just like, so I'll tell you, back to the faith part. I guess let me hold for 1 second. So before I went on the deployment, my mom, I don't know where she got this, some group of ladies who prayed for our troops. One thing they did, they took these little cloths and they pray over them, and they would say, hand this to your son, and we've prayed over this cloth, and this is, just give it to him, and this is,
This will protect them.
Yeah, right. And so, and I didn't get to, I don't believe, like, obviously this isn't God or anything, but yeah, this right here, I kept this on in my flak jacket, right? We had a little pocket right there, and I always kept it right there. And I remember specifically that night when I was about to start driving, I took that thing out, and I just started, like, rubbing it. I mean, I was just like, because I was so nervous. I was like, something's about to happen. And this, I was like, I just knew it. And I'm just rubbing this thing. I'm like, and I didn't know, I just wasn't grounded in my faith anymore. And all I knew to do was I had this. And so I knew this was my connection with God, or I knew I had prayers over me, I guess. And all I knew, it's like I just didn't know what to say. And I just started saying, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And I was just, man, if the static electricity on this, I guarantee I could have jumped a car off. I was rubbing it so hard because I was so nervous. And I was just saying, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And I was just creeping along, and just all of a sudden, bow! I mean, I just remember seeing a light, and I first thought, I was like, was that, did I get struck by lightning? Or maybe I figured maybe that's what that experience is like. And so I'm like, a few seconds, it kind of just threw me into my steering wheel. I remember that. And I remember the vehicle shut off, and actually it was because didn't have a key to start. I had a toggle switch start, and it's right in front of my knee. And so I think it threw me forward, and my knee hit the toggle switch and cut the vehicle off. But so I ran one over, and it was right underneath my feet, like my front wheel. Of course it's nighttime, I couldn't see at the time, but it threw it probably, I don't know, like 60 yards or something out there. Jeez. And we're talking about a wheel that's, shoulder high on me. And so I finally kind of come to my senses after 30 seconds or so, and I'm like, all right, I hit an IED. And so for some reason, I'm like, I started counting my fingers. I was like, 1, 2, 3. I guess, all right, I got all my fingers. I don't know. And I just remember smoke in our cab. And I had actually my platoon sergeant, Gunny Brown, and Corporal Lake, 2 other guys behind me, and, in the same vehicle. And I remember I finally was just like, are y'all okay? I finally thought to, like, all right, check on these guys. And they're just like, I probably couldn't say what they said, but my platoon sergeant, Gunny Brown, he's from West Virginia, and he was animated. I love that man. Love the man. He, thank God for him, but he was pretty animated. So I remember kind of came to my senses. There's smoke, and we say whatever, and remember Gunny Brown walks up. He finally walks up, and he just slams me on my Kevlar, on my helmet, and he's just like, welcome to the club, Both of them had already been deployed. They had already been blown up before. And so, I guess I was in the club now, And so yeah, I definitely, man, God, I just know God came through for me that night. And so what's so crazy about that story is that it didn't really end there. So it's nighttime, and we weren't going to move any further. We weren't going to try to recover this vehicle and get it pulled out or anything at night. So us three, we pack up and we get out. Actually, how you get on my vehicle is you climb up a ladder on the back. And so we climbed down and went to another vehicle for the night and crammed in, and that's where we stayed for the night, slept for the night. And so the next morning, right at dusk, one of the EOD guys, he gets out and he's like, hey, before we do anything, I'm gonna make another round. I'm gonna get my mine detector. And he had we all had these metal detectors, mine detectors. He said, I'm gonna make another round and just take another look. Because honestly, our rule of thumb was where there's one, there's two. And that's just how they worked. That's how they operated, because they know we're not going to leave a vehicle there. They know we're going to be walking. We got to walk around a little bit. And so that was their ultimate goal, is to, may not kill anybody with inside your vehicle. When you get out walking around and working and people have to be on the ground, then we're going to get you, with this secondary. And so he makes a loop around and is looking for what we call secondaries. And I hear him come over the radio. He's like, hey, I got some wires. And this guy, he finds another IED literally right at the bottom of our steps.
Where you'd step down the night before.
Yeah, right there. And so it's just like this, something came over me, and I'm like, oh my God, man. Like, what are, so I'm thinking like the miracles last night, I'm saying, I'm fine. I took a hit and I'm fine. But when you find out you just stepped all over one and it didn't go off for whatever reason, you're like, man.
And not just one of you. I mean, all three of you.
Right.
For that.
And I'm talking, and sometimes they would make them with could handle a little more pressure. So, because they were targeting a vehicle. But you got to think, like, man, I had all my gear. I had my weapon. I had a bunch of ammo. I'm carrying, I'm probably weighing well over 300 pounds myself and all my junk. And those two guys were way bigger than me, and we're stomping all over. We're thinking we're safe right there. And so, yeah, just a miracle. And thank God, because that's our biggest fear, because other guys before me, actually, I remember this. Gunny Brown, who rode with me in my platoon sergeant, he was so hard on me about not getting out of the vehicle. Like when we stopped, sometimes, man, I had to take a leak, and I wanted to just hop out. Let me just step right here and take a leak. And he was like, no, use a bottle. No, you're not getting out. And so I'm like, man, what's his deal? Why can't I just step right here? But, a few months into the deployment, get to talking and everything, and come to find out one of his previous deployments, one of his guys had actually stepped on one. And so, few of his guys in his platoon had to go around and pick up pieces. And so after that, I was like, well, I get it,
Yeah.
So yeah, I look back and, man, that man, no matter how he actually treated me face to face, that man took care of me. And so I thank God for him. He really did look out for me. As tough as you might think somebody is, they're still could be really looking out for you, and he really was. So, yeah, so that was my probably my closest call, I guess you could say. And I definitely yeah, there's this old, I think it probably comes from like World War I or World War II. There's no atheists in a foxhole, you ever heard that one?
Yeah.
And so as far away as from God, I guess maybe I'd gotten. And when it's time to cry out, man, you will remember Jesus real quick. And so, yeah, I just always carried this little cloth with me. I still got it I don't guess I'll ever get rid of it, because it's just, helps me remember, the prayers that have been prayed over me. And And I knew that too. My grandmother's praying. My mother, just the people in my church. Thank God for a good home church, of the local church. Just because of that, just knowing that people were praying for me, I'm a big proponent of the local church. And I know there's seems like more and more Christians out there nowadays you'll find a lot of people kind of like, I don't need to go to church necessarily. The church isn't really a building. And yet, I get it. Man, there's something about having a family, a local church, people you can rely on, people who to do life with. So I'm a huge proponent. I don't really, people start talking to me about that, about not needing to go to church. I'm like, well, okay, bud. Well, whatever.
Yeah.
I believe different.
I disagree.
Yeah.
Correct.
So
you make it through that. I'm sure obviously at that point in time, that kind of brings faith back into your life pretty quickly, and helps you recognize that, hey, probably a miracle that at least one of us three did not, that didn't go off.
Right.
In the damage that it could have caused. So let's fast forward a little bit through that, and let's get into when your military career ends.
Right.
Talk about that transition from, I assume your identity at that point in time in your life was being a Marine.
Right. Yep.
Going on 2 deployments and being blown up and, kind of probably pounding your chest a little bit. Look
Right.
at me. And then all of a sudden it's done.
Right.
So what's life look like at that time when the military career is over?
Yeah. So, this is, you kind of described it really well. From being in the Marine Corps, I remember going home sometimes. I was able to hold my head high, and I had my chest stuck out, and because I was told I was America's finest, and you go on a couple of deployments, like you said, I've done something. And so I'm a United States Marine. I've been to combat. And so being able to go home, I could hold my head high and I was just, I could live a proud life, I guess you could say. And when I got out in 2015, I remember I moved back to my hometown, moved back in with my parents and started looking for jobs. I took a couple weeks and just chilled and started looking for jobs. And after a couple weeks settling back in and not having a job immediately like I thought I would, things started to change. And I didn't see myself as that Marine anymore. And I was kind of just Joe Blow. And it took me like 4 months to find I did a little side work for a family friend, but I couldn't. It took me like 4 months to find a job, which was crazy.
Where were you at mentally? That had to be pretty tough.
Oh yeah. Getting to that, it was. It started really, really weighing on me. The economy wasn't great at that time in 2015, and oil was down. And where I grew up, oil was overall probably the biggest employer, the oil field. And man, I just couldn't find a job. And one thing that was killing me, I was looking at my friends, and a couple of them had gotten married. I think a couple of them had started having kids, had houses. And, good jobs. So my friends are starting to look pretty successful. And me, it's kind of like I essentially took a pause. I hit the pause button for 4 years to go do this thing. And so I'm not finding a job, and I'm looking at everybody, I guess, which is wrong. I'm getting pretty, I'd say, covetous, but also I'm looking at myself like, man, did I man, I think I'm maybe messed up. Maybe I made the wrong decision or something like that. And because I'm kind of nobody now. And so I went from being, America's finest to nobody. Couldn't find a job. It was really starting to bother me. Really. And what's crazy is like, I had a personal reference, a buddy working at, it was at a plywood mill, a good company to work for. And I had 3 interviews with this company and they didn't hire me in just south of my hometown. And I'm just like, what is going on? Like, it was just blowing my mind, and it was dry, and it was, it was getting to the point you just don't even want to try anymore. I knew I had to, but it was just, you kind of walk around ashamed because you don't have a job and you're living with your parents and
you're comparing.
Right. And that was my mindset. And I started dwelling on that. And I didn't have, other than, I grew up in church and I knew the Sunday school stories and I knew about God, but I didn't have a personal conviction. I didn't have a good foundation in the Word. And I didn't know what to do with my thoughts. And I didn't know what thoughts were legitimate and what I shouldn't dwell on. And so I was getting, for the first time in my life, I can say I was actually depressed. And I didn't know what it was. I never felt like this because it was more than thoughts. It had kind of moved into I can say this now, it became a spiritual matter. And I was just so distraught. It almost started physically, it did like physically affect my body. Like, sometimes the only thing you get pleasure in is food. So you just eat and eat and eat, I guess. But I'd also drink. I never stopped drinking. And what was crazy, I got to the point when I would drink, I would drink, once I kind of got drunk, and all of a sudden, like it would be like super depression, just like horrible depression. It was weird. And almost to the point it's like, man, I got to stop drinking.
You feel like that was spiritual warfare?
I guess you could say that term. I don't know. I would say, yeah, I don't really use that term just a whole lot. I think it was, I look at it, this is how it works when it comes to spiritual warfare or oppression, depression. I think it starts with thoughts, and I think that's how the demonic realm works, starting. And if they can get you to think certain thoughts and dwell on certain things long enough, they can depress you. And if they can get you to get depressed, then they can start, and maybe my terminology is wrong, this is just me, the best way I can explain it, then they can, kind of start, they can get a foothold on you. And almost to where you feel like you're in a pit and you can't get out. And so I think that's how suicidal thoughts start. When you've lost all hope, that's when I think that's when, if you want to talk about spiritual warfare, I think that's when, ultimately that's what the devil would love for all of us, to take our own lives. And if he can get you so distraught, so oppressed, depressed, whatever you want to call it, and get you to where you just don't have any future, you cannot see light at the end of the tunnel, you have no hope, then he's going to chunk that thought, that suicidal, because that's demonic. It's just got to be demonic, I know there's mental disabilities. I know there's mental illness. I understand that. But and I know some of that can be treated. But I think most of the time, this suicidal thoughts, that I think a lot of that is because you gave the enemy a foothold, because you just started you didn't know, because the Bible teaches against, dwelling on the wrong thing. It tells you to take every thought captive and bring it to the obedience of Christ. And so, if you're going to dwell on the wrong thing for too long, it's just going to
consume you.
Yeah. And so it's just opening up the door for the worst thoughts.
So you're in that pit.
Right.
How do you get out?
Well, it took a while, I'll say that. After about 4 months, I looking for jobs. I go in this job interview. It's a town called Arkadelphia, Arkansas, about an hour and some change from my hometown. And I go on this job interview. It's kind of really just one guy, kind of real lighthearted. It's a factory, and the interview seemed pretty easy, really laid back. It just seemed real. I wasn't nervous. Real nice guy. And I had the interview, and he takes me back to the plant manager, general manager, whoever, and he talks to me a little bit, and he's like, well, the general manager, he's like, well, he doesn't bring everybody back here to meet me. So, I'll just let you know that. And so I get out of the interview, and I'm feeling pretty good. And I actually was driving to another town after that to go, I think, to a place I had to lead on to put in an application. So I get in my truck, and I make it maybe a half mile, maybe not even a mile down the road. And I remember sun shining, and I'm just driving, and I'm not saying I heard it with my ears. I can't tell you. I heard, take this job. And so it was loud enough, I guess you could say, to the point, and I'm like, I'm almost looking behind me like, who the heck, what? And up until this point in my life, I didn't really experience anything spectacular, really supernatural. And so I'm thinking I'm nuts, I knew I had some, I'm going through the ringer, I'm pretty down low, and I'm thinking I'm hearing voices, and now I've got a problem probably. But in the back of my head too, I was like, was that God? Because I don't know, it wasn't with my ears, but it wasn't, I can't tell you how I heard it, but it was just as loud as me and you talking right now.
It's clear as can be.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's like it to this day, and this is over 10 years ago, I'll never forget that. It's just, take this job. And it's weird. It's not like I wasn't going to take it, or I didn't know, but actually, probably that was the interview. I'm sure it was like 9-10 in the morning, probably 3 o'clock, and I'm just guessing, in the afternoon, sometime after lunch, the HR lady calls me and offers me the job for a much better wage than I was thinking I'd ever get. And so I was like, well, yeah, I'll tell you, yeah, sounds good to me. Yeah. And so I took that job. And what's crazy is that little town, probably any other little town in South Arkansas, just from going to college or having relatives, I would have known somebody in any other town in Southwest Arkansas. I would have known somebody. That town, I just knew nobody. And so I'm there for a few months, and my mom, there happens to be a man, and he used to be a preacher, and it was kind of a weird story. I think he had to have a kidney transplant. And so he was kind of retired, you could say. He stepped down from his church. He had to, took care of his kidney and all that stuff. And so he was kind of retired, I guess, or whatever. And him and his wife lived in this town. And my mom knew it. And my mom was kind of close to him. And I'd heard him preach before. He'd like come and preached in my church when I was younger. And I knew who he was. And so my mom kept telling me, hey, you know, Dennis lives there. Dennis, you ought to meet up with him. And she's bugging me. And I'm thinking, I'm still at the point, you know, like I'm still wanting to drink, you know. I'm driving actually to my hometown, meeting my buddies every weekend. I'm wanting to hang out, party, whatever. And I don't want to talk to this preacher or whatever. And so she keeps bugging me. And after living there about 9 months, I went and ate with him and his wife one time. And eventually they wanted to start this, like, I just get together like a Bible study in their house. And I didn't want to go because I'm like 26. I just didn't want to go. I was going to a church, wasn't super involved, but I knew I needed to be in church because mom kept bugging me. And so I got going to a church, and but he was telling me about starting this Bible study at his house or whatever on Friday nights. And I'm like, man, I'm not going on a Friday night. And, you know, I did, he was going to have it one night. I bailed out on him a couple of times. And I remember one night he was having it, and I decided to go meet my brother up in Little Rock. But I knew I needed to stay and go to his Bible study or whatever. I knew I should have. Like, don't ask me why. I just knew I should. Just one of those things, like I should do it. I know I should do it. And I ended up just shoving all that to the side, and I could go up there and meet my brother on a Friday night, you know, in Little Rock. And we go out to eat, and I can't tell you how miserable. I can't explain to you how miserable I was. And it's like, I knew I should have been at that guy's house for that Bible study. I can't explain to you how miserable. It was so, and it's like, I don't know what's making, it's just like, you know, at the deepest part of your being, you should have gone and done this, and you didn't do it. And it's like the one time in my life I know, well, not the one time, but the first time I would say in my life, like I directly disobeyed God. And it was so painful. I remember me and my brother, I can't remember what he was doing, but he had something the next morning. So we stayed in the hotel. And I remember I couldn't even sleep at night. I was so miserable the whole night because I didn't go to this Bible study. And I get back home the next day at like, I don't know, lunchtime, and I run into my bedroom and I hit my knees. And I was like, God, I'm so miserable. I'm so sick. I'm so depressed. I'm so messed up. I'm so sick of life. Like my life sucks so bad. God, I'm done. So I'm just crying out to him. I'm like, whatever you want me to do, I'm doing it. Because I'm not living like this, because this is horrible. My conscience is literally gonna burst into flames and kill me if I don't start obeying you. And like, so it was just that intense of a conviction, I guess you could say. And I say it like this: I rededicated my life to God there, so I started going to this guy's Bible study, and he'd meet once a week, you know. And for the next like 6 months, I went to his house like every Friday night, and he just would teach. Because he was a pastor, he would just teach. And like first time in my life, I was actually listening. I learned so much. And I mean, it's just like all of a sudden, I had a hunger for the word. And so, but eventually my flesh was my flesh, and I still didn't really have any friends around there. And I was meeting with like him and like a bunch of older people. And I was like, I still don't want to be here. As much as I love this and I know I'm supposed to be here, I still don't want to be around a bunch of old people on Friday night. And so, anyways, I eventually got a job in Little Rock. That's where it's kind of how it is. The young people in the small towns, they migrate to the city, and then they get tired of it and migrate back home. Then they have their families. So I was at that stage, and I make it up to Little Rock, and I get a job, and I was there for like 4 years. And I got into a small church, but the pastor actually was from my hometown. So I went to that church, and I was growing and growing and growing, and just listening to his teaching. And eventually 2020, just to fast forward, I guess, 2020 came around. And I'll be honest with you, though, the whole time, like, I still deal with depression. Like, I'd be on highs, but then I would get on lows, and I would just still look at my life like I'm still not where I want to be. I still, like, I thought I would have gotten married and had kids by then and settled down and white picket fence and all this. And I was still, none of that had happened. And I was still, but it's just like something, I'm not doing something that I'm supposed to be doing. It's just like, what I'm doing right now, I am not fulfilled whatsoever. And so 2020 comes around, COVID breaks out, and man, it's like church shuts down for a good little chunk, and I'm going to work. We actually, just so happened, my job just was flourishing at the time, and I worked more hours that year than I ever had, or hopefully ever will. And I was just working like crazy. I started looking at social media, the world, the country's burning to the ground. That really started bothering me. I mean, I hated to see that. And that was bothering me pretty bad. And so I'm growing with God, but at the same time, it's like I'm at this plateau, and something's got to give. I'm still not, there's this huge hole still needing to be filled. And sometime during 2020, I just found myself, like, on a Saturday morning. I think I had tried to, a couple times I'd tried to get into fasting. I'd never done that. And I just kind of felt like I should, just kind of felt the conviction to do it. And so maybe the second or third time I would, like, fast on a Friday and get up Saturday morning and just read and pray. And one of these times I didn't know what to pray for. I was just like, I was really just spilling my guts and pouring my heart out, or I was really just complaining to God, like, what is wrong? Why do I feel? Because at this time I had a house. I was making good money. I was a supervisor. It looked like I had a good career ahead of me. I had a good church family, but man, I was just, something wasn't right. And so I'm just spilling my guts. I'm just complaining. I'm like, God, what the heck is wrong with me? What is wrong? Why do I feel I just like something, like I'm not doing nothing right? Am I like, is this the rest of my life? Is this what life's supposed to look like? And that same, like, voice, or I hate to tell people I'm hearing a voice, but it's like it's not with my ears, but I can hear it. It's just this internal, I mean, I know now it's the Holy Spirit spoke to me and told me specifically to go to Bible college. And
how'd that make you feel?
Well, once again, I'm like, I'm crazy. It's gotten to this point again. I'm actually clinically, something's wrong. And, man, at this point, because it was so specific, I knew it's not, the devil's not going to tell you to go to Bible college. Mm-hmm. And, so I knew it was God, but I was so, like, kind of shocked. And I want to say this too, just for people, just for context, like, that's happened to me twice in my life. And that is not normal at all. And I tell you this too, I think it happened in that extreme of a case, that spectacular of a case, because I was not necessarily heading in the right direction. And if God didn't, or I wasn't listening, I wasn't pursuing probably what I should have been. I was pursuing still a job, worldly things. I wasn't pursuing what God necessarily wanted me to do.
You were on your path, not his path.
Right. And so that's why I was in such anguish. And so if he didn't redirect me in such a, I kind of think it was like time is of the essence type deal. And not that God is like like things have to happen immediately. No, but it's like, your trajectory is off right now, and if I don't redirect you right now, you're gonna get pretty far off, and it's gonna be a lot harder later on for you to do this than it is now. That's just my take on it. So that's not the norm, is what I want to say. That's maybe once in a lifetime type deal. If that, I would say probably, 90% of Christians go through their life and then they don't hear that. They don't get that type of spectacular, thing from God. And I've learned too, like you can't, it's like, man, if I could tell anybody, if they're listening to this and man, please don't try to make that happen. Cause I've tried. Because I've definitely tried to hear the voice of God, and now I specifically tell people, I preach on it. Like, that's not the norm. That's not how God's reaching people on an everyday basis. Like you look at the book of Acts and you see these miracles and the spectacular stuff, and people don't realize this is happening to a group of men. Not all of them did this happen to, and it happened over a span of like 20 years. This is not everyday stuff. So we can't just expect that. So that's not what we should be looking for, because if you do, I've heard somebody put it like this: if you're looking for that spectacular stuff, listening for these voices, sometimes the devil might accommodate you.
Correct.
And so I think you've got to be so careful when it comes to that stuff. You got to live your life, get your direction from the Word of God. So,
but you definitely positioned yourself in the right spot, though, to where if God wanted to, talk to you like He did, right. I mean, you positioned you were fasting,
right?
Like you're talking about, like you're single, like you're in your house,
right?
Like you fasted, you woke up, you had your prayer life to where like you positioned yourself. We talked before we got on about the world's so busy, like people come over from Africa or something like that, and it's harder to hear God here.
Right.
It might not be the audible voice, right? But the Holy Spirit.
Right.
And just being like in your prayer life and in the Word, we're so busy that, if God's trying to talk to us, how many times, if it's not the audible voice that God's trying to talk, are we too busy to even hear,
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So you hear this voice, go to Bible college.
Right.
Eventually you do.
Yeah. So it actually, I hear that, and first reaction is, well, I'm nuts. But something like that, if it's really from God, if God really does talk to you, it will just be ringing in your head, and you will not forget it. Yeah, I mean, you cannot forget it. It will be, you remember the exact words, and I'll say this too. I hear this saying, God's talking all the time, but we're just not listening. No. That's just like, I get where they're coming from, but both times God spoke to me, it was like 3 words. God's normal, actually. We make God so super crazy spiritual that we forget, like, He created us in His image. And so our normal should be the way God acts. Like, I don't think Jesus was a weirdo when He was walking around on earth. I think He was probably as normal and regular, had a pretty cool personality. I think he set the standard for being normal. So, like, I think of it like this. It's like if I'm having a conversation with Jesus, when I'm talking, he's not. When he's talking, I'm not. So I think one of our biggest problems is we just expect God to just be blah 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 blah. No, it's like, I mean, you've got to say your piece, stop, listen. You know, it's not like he's going to talk. I hear it taught like this too, and I like this analogy. Like I've heard it said like this: the Holy Spirit's a gentleman. And so one thing about a gentleman, you know, he's not going to interrupt you. He's not going to, you know, invite himself to places that you didn't invite him. You know, he's perfectly normal. He's a person. And so people get that construed, and it's just not like he's going to be just talking to you, blah, 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 blah. I just don't, I guess I'll say it again. He's just normal. He's a regular person. And so we can't expect these just him to be talking over us and doing crazy things all the time and telling us just super crazy things to do. So anyways, I hear that. And so I'm like, you're struggling with your mind. You're trying to logic these things out. You're trying to rationalize, like, is this real? Did I hear from God? It's like the whole time in your heart, you know you did, but it's so far-fetched, so abnormal, unnatural, your mind just can't really handle it. And so eventually I talked to, I should have done it way earlier. I should have reached out to my pastor way earlier, but I eventually did. And so he's like, yeah, man, you know, that's a good deal, and I'm going to support you, and I'll do whatever I can to help you. And so it took me like a year, but I finally made it there. So I had a house to sell, and this is what's so crazy. If I would have sold my house and picked up and moved right then and sold my house, like, I wouldn't have come out very good. But in 2021, the housing market, man, it was crazy.
Exploded.
I came out so good. It's like God, man, it's like God. No, I hear a lot of stories about this. Like God, somebody will say, you know, God told me to do something, but it didn't, or told me something was going to happen, but it didn't happen like till 5 years later or something like that. He just laid it on my heart 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And, you know, God knows when you're going to pick up and move. God knows. It's like he knew that I wasn't going to be able to, didn't have the umph and gumption and passion to get up. I was too skeptical. You know, he knew it was going to take me a year. And that's why I feel like that's why he told me then, because when I sold my house, like, I came out so good. Like, I mean, literally the money I made off my house, like, I mean, it, for the next 3 years I was at Bible college, it you know, it helped me survive, because I literally I went to Bible college. I got a part-time job, you know, and I was making like a quarter of my previous salary. Yeah. And so that, man, it just, he worked it all out.
So you go through Bible college.
Mm-hmm.
You know, thanks to the sale of your house, you got money to survive. You get a part-time job. You come out of Bible college, and this is the part of the story where I was intrigued by how in the world a man from Arkansas ends up in Lewisburg, Ohio.
Yeah.
So talk about what happens and what conversation is had and what brings you here today. Why are you here?
Right. So specifically how I got here, after my second year of Bible college, I was praying about what should I do. Because that particular school, it's a 2-year program, and the first 2 years are pretty much Bible. But they have 3rd-year programs you can go to, and they're tailored towards being a pastor, tailored towards being a kids, like, youth minister. They have a missions, praise and worship, a musical side of things. And anyway, so I didn't want to do that. I was like, man, I don't need any more schooling or anything. And so I'm praying and praying about what in the world to do. And I kept, well, let me tell you this. I guess I need to tell you this. Somewhere along the lines, because I don't know as much. I don't know much, but I didn't know, especially then, as much as I know now. And God had spoke to me a couple times. And so I think I knew better, but I was still looking for this spectacular stuff. And so several months before I graduated my second year of Bible college, I had this, and I full disclosure, I mean, I'm embarrassed to tell this because it's so weird. And but I'll do it. Hopefully I help somebody. I had this dream. And this is so crazy. I had this dream, and it was like no picture, no nothing. It was just a voice, just a voice. And I heard they need help in Nebraska. That's all I heard. And I remember waking up, and I go on my life, and I'm like, well, once again, I'm crazy. And it's always me. I always point to myself as the problem. I don't know if that's healthy or not, but anyways, maybe I need help if somebody's out there.
You're being humble.
Yeah. But so I had this dream, and I'm like, I shove it off, and I knew better. I knew better. Dreams, you got to be so, they're probably like 1 in 1,000 are from God. I don't know. You just got to be so careful with that. So careful. And so it just kept popping up in my mind over the weeks. Weeks are going by, and I'm like, man, maybe I should pursue this thing. And then at our, I'm sitting through graduation, and this, the commencement speech or whatever, this alum guy, he was a pastor now, and he's actually from Ohio, and he was giving this commencement speech, and he was talking about, I think it's Acts 16 or something, and Paul has a vision in the night, and a man standing on the shore of Macedonia and says, we need help over here. We need help. And so the theme of this commencement speech is, we need help. They need help. And I'm like, oh my God, they need help in Nebraska. And so I'm like, how do I get there? And so I'm like, man, this is it, man. So I like, the only thing I know to do is like, there's websites out there, that just like any other job, there's, like Indeed or whatever, there's websites tailored for ministry. And so I get on there, and I find like one dude who needs like a associate pastor in Nebraska. And so I'm like, man, just one.
That's the one.
This is it.
Yeah. And so I like emailed him my resume, and I can't remember if I think they just wanted you to email a resume and write something. And so I sent him that, and I think it was, it may have been Memorial Day holiday, because I remember he didn't get back with me till like the Tuesday after, because I sent it on like a Friday or something like that. So about this time of the year, school's winding up and everything. So I'm like, man, this is working out perfect. Graduate, I'm going to move, it's, man. And so, like I said, I'm embarrassed to tell this, but I did it. Hopefully it'll help somebody. But so this guy comes back to me, and he's like, man, hey, your resume looks great. Thank you for your service. But I just got to tell you, I'm looking for somebody with a lot more experience, because my church has kind of gone through a little hurt or something like that. He's had some problems over the last couple of years, and we're trying to rebuild and stuff. And so he's like, I just, need somebody with a lot more, actual pastoring experience. And I'm like, I was so convinced. I had convinced myself that this was it, this was my opportunity. And I wasn't upset. I wasn't mad, but I was just so confused at that point. I was like, what the heck? How did I miss that? You know, Mr. Holy Spirit man over here, you know, how did I get that wrong? And so I just like, you know, I didn't really upset me too much. I was just really confused on how I got off that bad. And I just kept having this kind of thing and this like little nudge on the inside. I need to go back and visit my pastor back in Arkansas and the one in Little Rock. And I kept thinking that and kept thinking that. And honestly, I had not, in the 2 years I'd been away, I had not gone back and visited, which was wrong. And I regret it, and I apologize to him. And I hope anybody else out there will, you know, you should honor those who've poured into your life and stay in contact with them. And so I went back and on a Saturday, I got lunch with him. You know, I drove back over there and got lunch with him. I went to church the next morning with him. And so I'm sitting down to lunch and we're talking, just catching up and everything. And he's like, well, Caleb, you know, so what now? You know, what are you going to do? And I said, well, it's kind of what I wanted to talk about. And so I give him this whole spiel about the dream and like, what do I do now? And, you know, it's like, man, I really thought God would open the door by now. And man, he's hearing me and he's listening to me do, you know, what I did and this dream. And he's kind of just like putting his head down, kind of, you know, almost pursing his lips. And I'm like, you know, finally I stop and I'm looking at him and he's just like, Caleb, just forget that, man. Just don't just forget the dream. Forget all that. Forget that. He's like, what you need to do, you need to take a chill pill. And so my mouth's just wide open. I'm like, man, and this man's been like in ministry like 50 years or something. Like he's been there, done that. And I just couldn't believe his advice was take a chill pill. He was just like, Caleb, you just gotta, man, if God wants you somewhere, he's going to get you somewhere. You just need to relax. It doesn't matter if you go back to school or not. You just, wherever you're at, you be faithful. Serve. If you're at that church, you just serve. You be faithful wherever you're at. And you just make this a season of prayer. You just pray. Just you know, but ultimately be faithful. That God only promotes faithfulness. He just gave me the most simple, just advice. And it was so, but the thing, when he was saying it, it was like it was 120 degrees outside and you gave me a glass of ice water in it. You know what I'm saying? It was like the
Quench the thirst.
Best thing in the world. It was the easiest thing to listen to. And it was so simple. And I never walked away from a conversation feeling so lighthearted and so relieved. Man, just, and so what's crazy is I decided to go to this pastor's course. I go back to Bible college, go to this pastor's course, and I was there. I'd made it through the first semester right after Christmas, maybe about February time. They in this pastor's course, they were bringing these pastors in who had a lot of either started their own church or been pastoring like 20 years or something, you know, and it was awesome. These guys would come in and they just give you the down and dirty, good, bad, and ugly of pastoring. It wasn't super spiritual. It was just the dealing with people. And the first guy was from Lewisburg, Ohio, named Justin Wigand, and he caught me in between classes one morning. He was there for a week. And he's like, hey, man, you seem like a pretty good old boy. I want you to come visit my church. Just see what we're doing. And he just said that to me and like shook my hand. And I'm telling you, as soon as I walked away, like under my breath, I said, oh, my God, I'm moving to Ohio. Because like that whole conversation that my pastor had with me, and I just remembered everything he said, and he was just like, you know, if God wants you somewhere, he's going to get you somewhere. And he had also said something about it. He's like, God uses people. He uses people to get his will done. So, man, just the doors, it's just somebody's going to come up to you one day. The door's going to open. And just like as simple as it was, it's just exactly how he told me. His advice was just spot on, even though it seems very generic. But as soon as I talked to Pastor Justin, like all that came back to me. And it was just like, dang. But once again, now I start trying to logically figure this out and think how this is going to work. And so I'm like, is this God? You know, deep down on the inside, I knew it was right. This is the opportunity I prayed for. But, you know, in my head, I'm like, man, this is Ohio. That's the most I couldn't have thought of a more random place. Like if you asked me to
Nebraska.
Yeah.
Oh man, at least a voice mentioned that one. Yeah, you know, and so, but it took me forever. I finally, I came up here and visited for a couple of days. He just showed me around and he kind of laid it out to me. And he said, look, you know, we're always expanding and I'm not offering you anything and I'm not promising you anything, but, you know, I think you'd fit in and we're willing to train you, to help you, to work with you. And, you know, we're always looking to expand and it's just he was just saying it's so hard to find pastors. And so, he was like, no promises, but, you know, if you're willing to come up, get a job, find a place to live, you know, we'll work with you. We'll just see what happens. I mean, so literally, he just didn't offer me hardly anything other than almost exactly what I was praying for, really.
An opportunity.
An opportunity.
He kind of, as you're telling this, what's popping in my head is your meeting with the Marine recruiter.
Right, yeah.
Kind of a similar conversation a little bit.
Man, I think Pastor Justin could sell ice to Eskimo. I'm not going to lie. He's got that personality, and it seems like if he asks you to do something, you just want to do it for some reason. He's just got that about him.
Yeah.
So it was it wasn't a hard decision to make as far as I felt like it was the right place to be, a good place. I wasn't like skeptical of here. I was like, in my head is like, it's so random. It's so like Ohio, like, and what?
Yeah, it's
another move. That's another thing. I've been so tired of moving because ever since I left to go to the Marine Corps, it's about every 3-4 years I've moved. And so I'm just kind of sick of that life, you know. And I was like, another move. And
how long have you been here now?
A year, and February was a year. So what is that? 4 months, something like that. Year and 4 months.
See, so you make the move. You're here. You've been here a year and 4 months. You're helping out at the Community of Faith Church. You got a job. You're kind of getting embedded into the community, meeting people.
Right.
How's it feel?
Well, I definitely know I'm in the right place. I've never questioned, honestly, it's weird. I've never questioned since I've been up here, did I do the right thing? Because it's just I've had peace about being here the whole time. And that's what, that's what I've learned, and that's what I try to teach people or tell people if I get the opportunity is, back to the whole voices thing, that's not what you should be looking for. You need to be looking for peace. And, growing up, I remember going to my church, like my home church. I always felt at home. I always felt peaceful. I never felt weird. I never felt out of place. It was just comfortable. It was like home. And so it's the same since I've been up here. Like when I go to church at COF, I attended Arcanum for like a year. Now I'm at the Lewisburg campus, and but both places, I'm just comfortable. I'm at peace. I'm like, man, these are good people. This is a good work. I see God's hand on it. and that's not to say everybody's going to go there, and maybe that's not where God wants them. Maybe you'll feel that peace at another local body. But this is where, this is the door that God opened for me, and I'm at peace being here. No matter the outside stuff, job stuff, assignments they give me, blah, 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 you have, life is life, you got stuff you got to do.
Right.
Life gets tough, whatever. But that underlying piece of knowing you're in the right spot, you're in the right place, that's been there. And if that's here right now, so.
That's great, man. Amazing story, amazing journey. All the different things that happen in your life where you definitely now looking back see God's presence
right
through all those, triumphs and struggles and depression and, going to Bible college. And then all of a sudden here you are in Ohio, not
right.
Nebraska. It's an amazing story. It's an amazing testimony. And, I'm thankful that, that God made our paths cross, that we could sit here today and I could hear your story, and Ben could hear, everybody can hear your story and be inspired by it, because it's real.
Right.
And it's more common, I think, to a lot of people than not.
Yeah.
The struggles of finding work, the struggles of, being raised in faith and falling away in college and partying and doing all the things. I mean, I did the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. And then going into the Marine Corps and having this identity of, I'm invincible. I've done this. I've survived an IED, and coming home and trying to figure out who you really are.
Right. Yeah.
And when we search ourselves, we're not going to find those answers.
Right.
But I think when we truly surrender, and sometimes it takes being at rock bottom.
Yeah.
When we truly surrender, that's when we may or may not hear a voice, but we definitely feel a pull and a calling towards something bigger than ourselves.
Right.
And we know what that is.
Yep.
So, amazing story.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish with one question.
Okay.
I was going to give you 10, but we're rocking and rolling here.
Yeah.
We're going to call you Pastor Jeff Travis.
Hey,
Have you
listen.
met Jeff?
Yeah. And Jeff's going to be preaching this weekend. So
Is he?
How cool is that? He's
Yeah.
going to pass him up this weekend.
Yeah. And you got to go to work.
Yeah. What time is it?
Don't worry about it.
Don't look. Don't worry.
We'll write you a note.
Yeah. Does that stuff work nowadays?
Sean will do it. He'll write you one. All right. Last question. If you could sit on a park bench, have a conversation with someone living or deceased, who would it be and why?
I guess I could take the easy road out and say Jesus, which I guess that'd probably be everybody's number one. But I would probably say my grandfather, my mom's dad. I didn't know my dad's dad because he died, I think, like right a couple months after I was born. But my grandfather, I called him Pawpaw, my mom's dad, he died when I was 10 years old. But up until then, man, he would, that was my hero, He took me fishing, and he'd pick me up on a Saturday, and we'd be gone all day. And he was just like, he was it to me. And he was always, of all his grandsons, I'm the oldest. And he lived near me. My mom stayed home. Her other siblings, moved off. But so I was really close to him. And when I was 10 years old and then he died, that hurt so bad. Because he was just like it for me. And so, but also he was, I guess, probably one of the most godly men I've ever known. And I remember him always praying. I remember if I was spending the night with them, you know, waking up, and he was always up early, drinking coffee and reading the Bible. And I remember one thing he did, he didn't always do this, but towards the end of his life, he sold insurance, life insurance. And he would actually go, this was like, I guess, right as the internet was starting up, you know, I guess late 90s or whatever. You know, he would collect the people's insurance payment, the premium or whatever.
Right.
And so I remember riding around, he'd go to people's houses, but I remember him praying for people. And I just remember him being so godly. And but he got cancer and he died at 60 years old. Mm. And man, that really upset me as a young boy, and that's your hero. But I guess the reason I'd want to talk to him is because the older I got, when my grandmother got his wife, when she got older, she kind of got dementia, and she started losing her filter, and she started talking about everything and the family, all the skeletons in the closet and stuff. And he wasn't always saved. And apparently he was a little rough, and I think he ran around a little bit, and I think I think she put it like this one time: one of the babies wouldn't stop crying, so he didn't whoop the baby, but he whooped her. So I guess, I guess he he made a drastic change somewhere along the line. And still to this day, just thinking back, one of the most God-fearing men. I know the man knew God. Looking back, I just know, And so I guess I would like to ask him about his transition, or if you
transformation.
Want to,
change.
Transformation. Yeah, right. That's a good word. Yeah. Because it's kind of weird later on. I didn't really change my opinion about him after I hear all the junk, but I still, it didn't make me think less of him. But I think, like, man, how do you go from being such a hard man to being the man that I knew, and not to run around on my wife or beating my wife or anything, right. but like, I've had a transformation,
right?
And so, man, what can I glean from? What advice can you give me? And what was it like? There had to be a defining moment, and there had to have been a couple of spectacular instances with God. I just want to know what was that. What were those?
Yeah, so that's awesome.
I'd say that'd be it.
That's great, man. You got anything to add?
No, I was going to say kind of the same thing you did. It seems like the past 3 episodes that we had identity was like one of the main things of where we're finding our identity at, no matter if it was an athlete or if it was a Marine, that finding that identity, as long as you center yourself around identity in Christ, and, it's what brings us back. And then the other thing was, like, when you're talking about depression and comparison, like the other thing we always talk about, comparison being the thief of joy. Yeah. And it's just, the more stories you hear, the more it seems like you hear these things and the kind of the remedy for it,
Yeah. I think I could, like, that subject right there, I think I could do a whole podcast just talking about that subject, and my experiences and how to overcome that stuff. And because, man, that's so much more prevalent than we think. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you this, I believe suicide is so much more prevalent than we think.
Well, we're figuring that out too.
Yeah. Or the temptation or the thoughts of thoughts. Yeah. I definitely think.
We just had a young man right out of college, battling identity, college athlete, I had a kid, great family, would have never in a million years guessed it. And that's what he said. There was a dark time in his life in his sophomore year of college where he he contemplated suicide. Like, nobody's going to miss me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, that's when things changed. A phone call from his mom, and you know, he finally realized that his identity was wrapped up in the wrong thing. You know, it was wrapped up in college baseball.
Right.
And not in Christ. And once he figured that out, I mean, the transformation is truly remarkable to hear him tell it. And you're talking about a 21, 22-year-old kid.
Yeah.
So, you know, from the outside, looks normal, fine, you know, got a great life, and you just never know what somebody's carrying on the inside.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for those who are carrying those burdens that nobody sees is, man, number one, to pray. Number two, to not be afraid to talk to somebody about it.
Right.
Because that's where, when you start to let that out, where you did on your knees, praying to God, just spewing your guts, you know, if somebody's not to that point, but they can at least spew their guts to a friend,
right, to
a family member, to a pastor, whoever it is, I think they'll quickly realize that they've got a pretty good life living in the country that we live, the freedoms that we have. And sometimes it's just all it takes is a little bit of a perspective shift, you know? And so it's important. But thank you for sharing everything, man.
Yeah.
A remarkable story. I mean, it's amazing how God has worked in your life, and amazing that you're here, you know, today, and that we're sitting at this table, and it's pretty powerful. So thank you.
Glad you're in Ohio, not Nebraska.
Yeah, no kidding. For sure. I knew I shouldn't have told you.
Oh, that's great. I'm sure nobody will talk about that.
Man, I'll have. Oh gosh. I hope nobody watches this.
Nobody will. Don't worry.
Well, hey, I appreciate y'all having me on, because it's, like I said, it's first podcast ever. So hope I did all right.
You did great. Awesome.
Awesome.
You did great. All right, everybody, like and share and continue to support us. We greatly appreciate it. Go out and be tempered.
Hi, my name is Allie Schmidt. This is my dad, Dan. He owns Kitchen's Glass.
Thanks, Allie. Things like doors and windows go into making a house. But when it's your home, you expect more, like the great service and selection you'll get from Catron's Glass. Vinyl replacement windows from Catron's come with a lifetime warranty, including accidental glass breakage replacement. Also ask for custom shower doors and many other products and services. Call 962-1636. Locally owned with local employees for nearly 30 years.
Kitchen's Glass, the clear choice.
I want to share something that's become a big part of the BeTempered mission, Patreon. Now, if you've never used it before, Patreon is a platform where we can build community together. It's not just about supporting the podcast. It's about having a space where we can connect on a deeper level, encourage one another, and walk this journey of faith, resilience, and perseverance side by side. Here's how it works. You can join as a free member and get access to daily posts, behind-the-scenes updates, encouragement, and some things I don't always put out on other platforms. And if you feel called to support the mission financially, there are different levels where you can do that too. That support helps us keep producing the podcast, creating gear, hosting events, and sharing stories that we believe can truly impact lives. And here's the cool part. Patreon has a free app you can download right on your phone. It works just like Facebook or Instagram, but it's built specifically for our community. You'll be able to scroll through posts, watch videos, listen to content, and interact with others who are on the same journey. At the end of the day, this isn't just about content, it's about connection. It's about building something together, not just me and Ben putting out episodes, but a family of people committed to growing stronger through real stories and real faith. So whether you just want to hop on as a free member or you feel called to support in a bigger way, Patreon is the door into that community. Because at the heart of BeTempered has always been simple, real stories, raw truth, resilient faith, so that even one person out there that hears what they need to hear, and Patreon helps make that possible.